Picture this. You're a 12-year-old boy in ancient Rome, ripped from your family and branded like livestock. Your new master examines your teeth like a horse at auction. This was the brutal reality for thousands of enslaved young males, their childhoods erased in an instant. But what happened next was even worse. Their lives became a never-ending cycle of humiliation and pain, from back-breaking labor to serving as playthings for Rome's elite. This video reveals the hidden horrors these boys endured, and how their suffering built an empire. Imagine standing naked on a wooden platform, strangers poking your ribs and pulling open your jaw to inspect your teeth. The auctioneer spins you around like merchandise, announcing your age and origin to the crowd. You're 8 years old, but no one asks your name. This was the first ritual of erasure for enslaved boys in Rome, stripped of clothing, family, and identity in a single morning. Roman slave markets operated with cold efficiency. Traders sorted boys by age and build, assigning values based on their potential for labor or entertainment. The healthiest were paraded first, forced to jog in place or lift weights as buyers murmured approval. A strong, obedient child could fetch 5 times the price of a malnourished one. The most expensive were those barely in their teens, old enough for hard labor, young enough to break. Names came next. A dealer would snap his fingers and assign a Latin label, severing ties to homeland and kin. One moment you were a boy with a mother, the next you were lucrio or pure, property answering to whatever your master fancied. Auctioneers scripted fictional backstories, spinning tales of exotic origins to inflate bids. Buyers cared only for utility, small hands for delicate work, straight teeth for household service, smooth skin for darker purposes. The podium where families were shattered doubled as a stage for cruelty. Some traders made boys swallow vinegar to whiten their teeth before inspection. Others starved them for days to ensure lean muscle displayed well. Wealthy patrons circled like vultures, debating whether a child's timid demeanor meant docility or defiance. Every flinch, every tear became part of the sales pitch. By sunset, chains replaced the auctioneer's gavel. Iron collars clamped around throats, engraving the buyer's name into metal. The lucky ones were dragged toward workhouses. The rest were led away to places no child should enter. But the auction block was only the prologue. The real torment began when the gavel struck, and new owners claimed their living trophies. If you're curious about more of this, make sure to subscribe and stay tuned. Your palms blister within the first hour at the millstone. The wooden handle presses into raw flesh as you push against the unmoving weight of grain. Overseers measure productivity by the bloodstains on the wheat. Darker flour means you're working hard enough. This was agriculture as punishment. Children harnessed like oxen to grind Rome's bread. The empire deliberately exploited boys' small bodies for tasks that broke grown men. In mines, boys crawled through tunnels narrower than their shoulders, scraping ore with nails until fingers wore to nubs. Bakeries prized children for reaching into scorching ovens, their arms less likely to catch fire than an adult's. The aqueducts needed tiny hands to clear blockages in stone pipes, where many drowned in sudden floods of backed-up water. Survival rates told the story. In some quarries, half the enslaved boys died within a year, crushed by falling rocks or finished off by lung infections from stone dust. The flour mills were quieter killers. Constant inhalation of airborne grain particles caused infections that rotted teeth and jawbones. Owners factored this decay into their ledgers, working boys hardest in their first years before their bodies gave out. Some tasks weaponized humiliation alongside exhaustion. Vineyard slaves as young as 6 were forced to carry baskets of grapes uphill, lashed if they stumbled under the weight. In elite households, boys polished marble floors on hands and knees until their kneecaps cracked. The work served no practical purpose, just a reminder that their suffering was discretionary. Every industry had its own method of measuring a child's limits. Mill overseers counted how many fainted per shift. Mine operators tracked how many basket loads of ore a boy could haul before collapsing. The system wasn't designed to extract labor. It was designed to erase personhood through relentless depletion. Yet for those who survived the mills and mines, another horror waited. The lucky ones died at their labor. The unlucky graduated to serving Rome's appetites beyond the workshop. The oil lamp flickers as a hand shakes you awake. Your master's breath smells of wine when he orders you to kneel. You're 12 years old, but you've already learned what this tone means. This was Rome's open secret. Enslaved boys served their masters in ways scrolls never recorded. Wealthy households groomed attractive boys like living ornaments. Bath attendants scrubbed their skins soft. Barbers plucked every stray hair to prolong childhood's illusion. The poet Martial boasted about his favorite slave's unbroken voice, while graffiti in Pompeii joked about the boy who cries at night. Your suffering wasn't just expected, it was eroticized. Surgery ensured compliance. Some owners paid physicians to castrate prepubescent boys, preserving high voices and hairless bodies. Others used hot baths and tight loincloths to stunt development. Legal texts refer to these mutilations as property modifications, with fines levied only if the operation killed someone else's slave. Your body belonged to Rome long before you understood what they'd taken. The law conspired in the abuse. If a master raped his slave, neighbors might gossip, but courts called it using one's property. Wealthy men exchanged boys as gifts, sometimes loaning them to friends like fine pottery. Household records listed their values alongside silverware and hunting dogs. Your terror was inventory. Resistance meant annihilation. Boys who fought back disappeared into work gangs or wine vats. One legal ruling upheld a master's right to execute any slave who bit during intimacy. Suicide became the only rebellion. Archaeologists find small bones with stomachs full of hemlock seeds. Rome's moralists railed against Greek pedestry while raping children in their own villas. Philosophers wrote treatises on ethics using slave boys to carry their scrolls. The empire built temples to chastity, with hands that had touched broken children. This wasn't hidden depravity, it was society's foundation. Senators joked about their nighttime attendance at dinner parties. Doctors recommended boys for calming hysterical women. Your body wasn't just a toy, it was proof that Rome's virtues were painted on rotting wood. Yet the amphitheaters promised one last degradation. Some masters tired of their toys and demanded blood instead of obedience. The lucky ones died quietly. The rest became entertainment. The wooden sword splinters on your first clumsy swing. Across the blood-stained sand, the gladiator doesn't even raise his shield. You're 10 years old, pushed into an arena where survival isn't the point. This was Rome's purest cruelty. Children dying for laughs. Slave boys appeared in arena spectacles as living punchlines. Some were dressed in miniature armor and pitted against professionals in mock duels doomed from the start. Others became moving targets for archery exhibitions, forced to dodge arrows, while spectators bet on which limb would get hit first. The youngest, often 6 or 7, were strapped with sacks of grain and released alongside starving lions, their tiny bodies slowing the beasts just enough for hunters to make impressive kills. The crowds adored these shows. Recordings from Pompeii's walls boast about games where the boy lasted 3 bites from a bear. Patricians paid extra for events featuring multiple children, sometimes staging mythological reenactments where boys played sacrificial victims. Their deaths weren't accidents, they were the climax. The Colosseum's drainage systems had special channels for small corpses. Not all died quickly. Some arenas specialized in humiliation spectacles where boys were given dull knives and told to defend themselves against attack dogs. Others forced children to reenact military defeats, playing the role of captured enemies whipped and dragged behind chariots. A few accounts mention boys surviving initial injuries only to be brought back weeks later for encore performances with fresh scars still healing. The system perfected its cruelties. Organizers learned that audiences cheered loudest when children cried for their mothers, so some events included actresses hired to stand in the crowd calling a boy's birth name. Others staged fake rescues, lowering a rope toward a terrified child only to yank it away as beasts closed in. What chilled observers wasn't the violence but the carnival atmosphere. Vendants sold honey cakes shaped like lions near pits where real beasts tore into children. Senators placed bets using the same fingers they dipped in perfume between rounds. Rome didn't just tolerate this, it sold tickets months in advance. These spectacles revealed the empire's unspeakable truth. When a society stops seeing children as human, no horror remains taboo. The same hands that built aqueducts and wrote philosophy clapped for boys choking on their own blood. Yet their suffering raises one unavoidable question. Those boys built Rome's marble wonders with splintered fingers, hauled its grain on broken backs, and died unnamed in its spectacles. Their blood mixed with the mortar of an empire that erased them twice, first as children, then as memories. Next time you see a Roman column or read Latin poetry, notice what's missing. The quarry marks are there, but not the small hands that carved them. The verses survive, but not the boys who lit the lamps so senators could write them. Cruelty thrives when we stop asking whose pain paid for our beauty. Their ghosts are still waiting for us to see them.